Hello, boys and girls. This is Miss Fiebinger from Plum Creek Elementary in Joshua, Texas. And today I want to tell you a story. This is a story about a girl named Clara and her little brother. Clara and her little brother were so excited because it was Christmas Eve, and they had a party that night at their house. And all of their friends came over, and they played games, and they had cake and ice cream, and they gave each other gifts. And while they were having a party, Uncle Drosselmeyer came in, and he gave Clara a nutcracker. Now, normal nutcrackers were not so pretty, but this nutcracker was big, and it was painted in the shape of a handsome prince. And Clara loved this nutcracker. She thought this was the most awesome present she had ever had in the whole world. So Clara carried this doll around all night long, and she said, "Oh, this is my favorite present ever." Well, when all the kids had left, her little brother decided that he wanted to play with the doll. He was tired of his toys. He wanted to play with his doll. And so he got her doll, and he yanked it from her. Well, she yanked it back. And he yanked it from her, and she yanked it back. And they had this yanking contest, and then he gave a huge, mighty yank, and psh, the nutcracker doll flew across the room and landed on the hard floor and broke. And, they tried to put it back together, but when you have a toy and it's broken, even if you try really hard, sometimes it just doesn't look the same. And so Clara was so upset, and her Uncle Drosselmeyer wrapped it up in some bandages and stuff, and Clara fell asleep on the couch. She just cried herself to sleep. She was so sad. Well, late that night, she heard a sound, scritchy, scritchy. As she opened her eyes, she sat up and looked around the room to see what was going on. And out of a hole by the door came a three-headed rat. And this rat had a crown on one of his heads, and he had a sword in his hand. And you know what? That was the Rat King. And as he came in the middle of the room, he got bigger and bigger and bigger until he was Clara's size. And out from behind him came a whole army of rats. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to take over all of the Christmas presents that were under the Christmas tree. So all of the little toy soldiers and all of the teddy bears and all of the trains and all of those things, they came to life. They were so scared. And so what happened is the Rat King advanced upon them. He was very sneaky. He advanced upon them with his army. And he took a swing at them. But the toys had been woken up, and so they were ready for him. And they started pelting him, and they started throwing things at him like bows and bits of wrapping paper. And they were throwing things at the rats. But the rats kept advancing. And they were almost going to take over the toys. It was so scary. When suddenly, Clara's nutcracker prince that she had laid on the couch with and slept next to, her poor broken nutcracker doll, stood up, threw off his bandages, came to life, had his sword, and said, "Charge!" And all those toys charged and charged and charged and charged. And you know what? Those kids earlier at the party, they had eaten a lot of Cheez-Its, and they had dropped them all on the floor. And so the toys looked around, and they picked up all the Cheez-Its off the floor, and they threw them at the rats. And the rats were so excited, they said, "Oh, look, cheese!" And they dropped their swords, and they started picking up the cheese and eating it. And the nutcracker again said, "Charge!" And so the toys charged on the rats, and the rats had dropped their swords and were eating the cheese, and they looked up and went, "Yeah!" And they turned, and they ran away. The nutcracker prince had saved the day, and he went over to Clara, took her by the hand, got her up off the couch, and they walked through the magic doors to a different land. Ah, boys and girls, you're going to find out about the different land later on.